on this computer.
Let me know when you're ready.
This says we're recording, so hi everybody. I'm Todd Kiesling, and joining me is the lovely Mercedes Yardley. This is a very impromptu interview because the two of us had agreed to do an interview with some guy, and he just didn't have his shit together.
It just didn't work out.
Yeah, so we had already scheduled the time to do this, and I don't know. It was
work for him. I don't know.
I don't want to speak ill of him because he's not here, but
I'll speak ill of him. He just no. It was more trouble than it was worth. And Todd and I are like, we got this. So Todd and I made contact, which is what the guy told us to do, is make contact with each other. And once we made contact, we just decided we'll just do this ourselves, man.
Yeah, like there's a 3-hour time difference between Mercedes and myself, so it's kind of hard to coordinate these sorts of things. And once we finally nailed down a time for the interview host to kind of fall through, we decided, you know what, we're going to make the best of this. We've already, scheduled a time. Let's do it. We don't get to talk very often anyway, one-on-one. So
right.
We're going to ask each other questions, and it's going to be really informal. Well, I'm going to be informal. Mercedes just came from a panel, so she's all dolled up with her, with her flower in her hair and her makeup. I look like I just rolled out of bed because I kind of did. And
but you're nice and trimmed, Todd.
I am nice and trim, but now you can see like how oddly round my face is.
No, it's just the earphones. What I'm concerned about is that constant peeing sound in the background.
Yeah, well, my patrons already know that, this tank is constantly running low on water, and it's very loud because the filter is so high off the surface of the water that it pours. That's what you're hearing.
Can you hear my washing machine?
No.
Excellent. Because it walks across the floor and it's at that spin cycle.
Oh, yeah, ours does that too. It kind of butts against the wall, so it sounds like something very inappropriate is going on in our laundry room.
Yep. I just wanted to point out that if you hear that here... we would like to let everyone know that all these weird noises in the background. Earlier during the panel, my poor husband was throwing up. And so I could hear him, but I'm hoping the panelists didn't hear him as they're talking to Stephen Graham Jones. And my husband's in the background like, I just pretended nothing was going on.
That's awesome. It's like, that's just my husband dying. It'll be fine.
Yeah, I'm busy now. I'll check on him later. I'll move the corpse out of the way later. So what's cool is we don't know what these questions are.
Yeah, this is totally, I guess you ask one, I'll ask one, and then we'll, just go from there.
Yes.
Okay.
My first question for Todd. Todd, why was it so hard to finish the Monochrome trilogy? Boom!
Why do you hate me?
Boom!
It was extremely difficult to finish the Monochrome trilogy, partially because I've lived with it for so long. I just wanted something different, but also depression and anxiety really got in the way of that. I started the last book in 2013 and made several attempts for 2 years to get it started. And every time I would write a little bit and then start second guessing myself and couldn't really decide where to begin. I knew how it was going to end. I just didn't know how to get there. And I had all these different ideas, and I got really frustrated with it. And, that just fed into the whole depression and anxiety thing. And it's just a perpetuating cycle. So I set it aside in, I think it was 2015, and said that, you know what, I'm not finishing this. I need to work on other things. And that's when I moved on to shorter fiction and Devil's Creek and everything else that came after. But I guess it was end of 2018, actually. The end of 2018, after I'd finished Devil's Creek, the first draft, I started thinking about the book again. And I had like, I guess because I just finished this monstrous project that I kind of felt like I had some clarity and some confidence. And I started thinking about the book again. And, I started thinking about all the issues with the first two books and what I need to change in those to make the third book make sense. So that's when I approached Bloodshot and got the reprint, deal going. So long story short, basically my own fears and anxieties, and that's really what made it hard to finish. But once it got going, aside from the quarantine happening and pandemic and what have you, it kind of just happened naturally. Like I'd never left, which was kind of weird. So, does that answer your question, you sadist?
I love going straight for the depression and anxiety first question.
That's great. We're off to a good start.
But I have to say I'm amazed because I've been, you update us with your progress and stuff, and you just don't freaking stop, dude. Like you're just, go, and you just power through. And it's cool that you were able to take a step back, but also get back on that horse and just that it's going so smoothly for you, especially because I know you were afraid that it wouldn't go as smoothly for you because, it's your Bone trilogy of I'm in the same spot, but it's just cool to watch you go. So
thank you. My questions are probably a bit more generic.
So that was my only serious question.
Okay, that's fine. So what are you working on right now?
Oh.
Yeah. How do you like them apples?
Ah, you jerk. There are words going through my head that I can't say. I don't know. I'm working on a book called The Kitchen Witch, but I'm hating it. I'm hating it so bad because it was something I wanted to write 7 years ago when I had like other projects that I had to do. And so I put it aside, and I have all this pressure on me now. I have put this pressure on me to make this be really good. And I'm struggling with it because it's not coming as easily as I thought. So The Kitchen Witch, but I'm wondering for NaNoWriMo, which you're going to do, so I'm going to do because I am going to beat you. I am either going to do The Kitchen Witch and finish it, or I might do the second book of the Bone trilogy, which is pretty much, it's written, but it's not great. Or I might do that romance that Italia asked for.
Okay.
So I don't know, Todd. What am I working on?
Italia being our agent, we share.
Oh yeah, we have an agent.
She loves Mercedes more.
No, Todd's her favorite. I'm the redheaded stepchild. It's painful.
I didn't realize you'd already finished the second book.
I think I did. I think it's finished. I've got the third. I think I started on the third. It's awful. It's just bad. It's okay, really
but if you have that first draft, I mean that's the hardest part.
That's not how I work. Writing is easy and the revisions are it's really tedious. It's really get from point A to point, like the second book is a filler and the third book is where things get exciting. And I need to either cut that second book out kind of entirely and go straight to the third because it's a trilogy. And the reason it's a trilogy is because my old publishers had signed a deal with Audible saying that it would be a trilogy and then let me know it was a trilogy afterward. So it was originally standalone that became a trilogy out of necessity, which now I realize is illegal and stuff, but at the time.
That's, I can see you restraining all the words you want to say.
You were there for a lot
I was there for a lot of that, and fortunately that publisher doesn't exist anymore because they suck.
So
she can't say this stuff, but I can.
Thank you, Todd.
Horrible.
Thank you, Todd.
Horrible and unscrupulous, and I'm glad they're gone, and I dance upon their ashes.
You're my favorite. So there we go.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
It does answer my question.
Straight for the heart, Todd.
Yep. Yeah.
Ugh.
See how it feels. See how it feels.
But I'm gonna cry, and people get sad when they see women cry on screen. Okay, Todd, what is your favorite monster?
My favorite monster. Oh, that's easy. I see him in the mirror every day.
I knew that was exactly what you were gonna say. I should have bet money. Money,
You know what?
Todd.
You know what? I'm gonna go back to when I was a little kid and infatuated with the Castlevania video games. Dracula. Dracula is my favorite monster. Even though I'm not a huge fan of vampires now, Dracula was he was like, you know, public enemy number one in my mind. He was the ultimate bad guy because I wanted to be Simon Belmont. So
That's impressive.
well,
Those games were so hard.
Oh yeah, I've beaten all three of them, the originals. I've beaten them.
Good for you.
They are extremely difficult. Extremely difficult. So, okay, I guess my questions are a bit more serious than yours. Because my next one I have here is, how have you managed or not managed your creativity during the pandemic?
Boy.
Yeah. I'm glad one of us brought our A game to this interview.
Yeah, I know, right? I forgive you for not. It's been really hard. My depression and anxiety, you know, went off the rails, and I haven't. I've done a lot of staring into space. I've done a lot of writing that I've had to do because I had deadlines or commitments, but not with any sort of joy. I haven't written for joy in a really long time. So my well is very dry. So I'm trying to refill it now. I'm playing a lot of, like, you know, video games. I've started playing Slender Man with the kids last night.
That's awesome.
Yeah, these poor kids are like, ah. So I've been trying to refill the well, and I've been trying to give myself grace because I can't think. I've got that like trauma staring into space thing going on, like all the time. And it's been 6 months now. So one of the ways that I'm trying to do that is by doing Nano, because I need the accountability. I joined a writers group. I used to have the perfect writers group, the best writers group. And then everyone got married and moved away and had kids.
How dare they?
How dare they get on with their lives? And I had already done all those things. So I'd already been there, done that. I was ready to write. So when that group dissolved, I didn't find a new one. And I found this new one, which I told you might not be the best fit for me.
Yeah.
I don't think it's the best fit, but I need that accountability. So by doing NaNoWriMo and by doing word sprints and word wars with other people, that seems to be effective for me, because I need someone to sit down and write with me, or to have some accountability, or I'll just not. I can get the words out. They're just not good words, but then I can go back later and make them better words. So
there you go.
Geez. Wah, wah. That's how it's been.
I totally get that. I mean, that's pretty much the main reason I'm doing Nano too, is because I need something to kind of get my butt in gear and hold me to something, because I've been doing a lot of the same thing, just kind of, you know, stewing in this general anxiety. And it's not because I don't want to write. I want to write, but it's extremely hard to justify spending the time when you feel like you could die at any second. You know, it's
right.
You know, I described it in an interview a while back as kind of like, you know, Don DeLillo's White Noise, the airborne toxic event. It's this, you know, and not this nebulous thing that's happening in the book, and you don't really know what it is, but it's kind of creates like this anxiety over everything, and creates tension, and yeah. So COVID sucks, and pandemic sucks, and it's really impacting our writing, and that sucks.
Yeah, it is. Also, all these COVID stories coming out, they suck.
Yeah, and the election cycle sucks.
Oh,
So all of that is like this perfect storm of anxiety, and everything's on fire, and this sucks.
right. And
Yes.
you have to navigate it. And I have 3 kids, right? So I'm trying to
Yeah.
be like, okay, kids, this is fine. Everything's fine. We're all fine, and we're not fine. I mean, it's madness. But I did sign Nina and my middleist. I signed us up for a 20-mile race where it's 20 days and 20 miles, and it's the dumpster fire challenge. And when we win, which I will win tomorrow. I'll have done my 20 miles tomorrow. We get a big medal, and it's a dumpster fire with like the fire's actually sun catcher, so you can hang it in your window. And
That's amazing.
yeah, so we're finding the humor in it, or we're trying to anyway. But yeah,
Okay.
it's just really hard. Like the kids want to go back to school, but Vegas, we're insanely high because Vegas isn't known for being smart and a place where you make good thought out decisions. So,
That's fair.
it's fair. Well, moving on from that, my gosh, Todd. If you had to co-author a book with someone, who would it be and why?
Oh, that's easy. Anthony Rapino.
What? That was supposed to be like a hard question. You're supposed to
Oh,
be like, I don't know. I'm a one-man machine. I
well,
don't.
I mean, okay, so I started to co-write something with Chad Lutzke last year, and I had a lot going on. I had to get some revisions out for Devil's Creek, first of all. I had to do that. So that took precedent over everything. And, I've talked to Chad since then about it. And basically, our processes are way different. Like he's kind of more of a pantser, and I'm more what they call a planter, where I try to plan at least where I start and end. And everything else in between is the pantsing.
You're a prancer, Todd. A prancer.
Yes, I prance. I also frolic.
I know you do.
Oh yes.
In my dreams every night. Okay.
So you can see the issue there, because I'm trying to build on something that he's writing and vice versa. So it's like, he might veer off in a completely other direction, and then my idea of where we were going to go, falls apart. So there was also not very much planning involved, and I think that's part of why it never really happened. I don't know, maybe I'm just a control freak. Maybe.
I believe it, except for the control part.
That's fair. But yeah, I would love to co-write something with Tony, and just because I feel like we're kind of on the same wavelength when it comes to horror, and we kind of have the same influences. And I don't know, from working with him on the Greetings from Moonhill project several years ago, I think our processes are pretty similar, and I think that's really important. All that said, I haven't given up on co-authoring something with Chad, because Chad's a fantastic writer. So yeah, but I would have to say immediately Tony Rapino. And like, I even pitched something to him a couple of years ago, because we always go to this drive-in, or we used to before the pandemic, the Mahoning Drive-In, which has kind of become like this huge deal now. Like, they've had Bruce Campbell, they've had Bill Moseley, they've had all the horror icons this summer, of course, when it's ticketed now. You gotta buy your tickets in advance, and it sells out and everything. But when we still went to the Mahoning Drive-In, I thought about doing like a short like novelette, something that we could like have printed and to sell there, just to try to expand our readership and kind of capture that horror, going audience. And I wanted to call it the Mahoning Drive-In Massacre. and have it be like this slasher style story that happens at the Mahoning Drive-In. At least that's kind of how I envisioned it. But Tony's busy, I'm busy. You know how it goes. So
That is awesome. I hope you guys do it eventually.
maybe eventually if I can convince Tony to, do something. He's a bit of a hermit. All right, so you mentioned your kids, so this is kind of apropos for the next question. So you're super mom, and trust me, you are. So are your kids kind of in tune with some of the dark things that you write about? Like, do they know that mom kind of writes about really disturbing stuff, or is it just kind of this thing that mom just does? And will they ever be allowed to read your work, I guess, is follow up to that?
Yeah, they know that I write like horror stories, but they don't know that they're how dark they are, like
Okay.
like Little Dead Red, child murder and
Yeah.
predators and sexual abuse and stuff. So they don't know that there's like real horror involved. They're just like, oh, mom writes about scary monsters, and I'm like, sure, the scariest monster is us, whatever.
Yeah.
But they like it and they dig it. And like our house, is decorated in skeletons, and they're dark little kids, but in a very light, whimsical way,
Okay.
like Lil will run around and she'll have like her stuffed skeleton or whatever, or her just little bony M. We named him after the band. Her little skeleton, and she'll say things and she'll do creepy things, but it's creepy light. Like, we're still a pretty light family.
Gotcha.
Nina has read most of my stuff. She doesn't get to read Little Dead Red, and she doesn't get to read Apocalyptic Montessa, Nuclear Lulu, because it's about serial killers and there's a lot of blood and things. But she got to read like Nameless and Pretty Little Dead Girls and things like that. So they know it's dark. They don't know how dark. And
Okay.
I think Luke hasn't read a couple of them too.
Really?
So, because he doesn't like dark, and it doesn't bother me or offend me or anything. So it's kind of nice in a way.
Okay.
So yeah, they know. They just don't know all of it.
Okay.
They're just like, mom writes scary stories, yay, show and tell. And I'm like, great, mom's a pariah at Fong Elementary or wherever. Thanks,
I hope that wasn't too personal a question. I can cut that
No,
out.
not at all.
Okay.
Yeah, Todd, it was so personal. No. Mm-mm. That was a great
I should have asked about that ahead of time. I'm sorry.
No, don't be weird. Okay, speaking of kids and my kids, Lilia wants to know, are you a sloth?
Yes. I'm actually like 5 sloths in a man suit. And you can't see it but there's a zipper down my back. And they trade out like who gets to be the top sloth, who obviously gets to speak.
They're very fair.
Right now it's I'm Ben the sloth. There's Ben, and there's Tom.
Reginald. These are all very white names.
Yes. There's Darren. Yeah, I am a sloth, like in all ways. Aside from the beard, which kind of makes me look like a bit like a sloth, just because of the way the gray and the color kind of,
And those eyebrows, those sloth-like eyebrows.
Yeah, and
your long, lurpy sloth arms.
Yeah, lurpy
She's
sloth
going to be
arms.
So full of joy when she sees it.
I hope so. Thank you for the question, sweetheart.
My children call all sloths Todd. So if they see a sloth, they'll be like, it's a Todd.
That's fair.
And it's just, that's what it is. And all sloths are named Todd, and it's just awesome. Anything else depressing you can ask me? You want to ask about my dead grandma or my dead cat? I still miss him every day. My grandma, actually, not quite as much.
My next questions are way more lighthearted. So You mentioned playing Slender a little while ago. So I know you're a gamer. I'm a gamer. You know, we've talked about our love for Earthbound, um, which is the best game ever made.
It is. It is so charming and funny and trippy.
Um, so what are you playing these days? Obviously, you're playing Slender, but you know, what else are you playing?
So I just finished Final Fantasy 15, which was awesome. And I won't say much because I don't want to spoil anything, but it has one of the best depictions of a disabled character that I have ever seen. The most
Really?
truthful. Yeah. We can talk about it later. But like just how people deal with it. And so we finished a whole bunch of, we've been playing a lot of Final Fantasy in quarantine. But right now I'm playing Arc the Lad Twilight of Spirits, which is an old PS2 game.
Mm-hmm.
And I love it. I love it. It's weird. And it has a character in there named Babadora. And I name every single carnivorous plant I ever get Babadora. So if I have like 5 Venus flytraps, they're all named Babadora. It's not even Babadora 1, Babadora 2, it's just Babadora. So I'm playing that. I'm almost done with that. And I'm playing Okaga Shadow King, which is another old PS2 game.
Yeah. I remember Okaga.
With Evil King Stan. And I play that one with my kids and they narrate it for me, which makes it go so much slower, but they love it. So they do all the voices for them. So I'm playing Twilight when they're in bed. And then when we're done, I don't know. We played a little bit of, what is it? Hello Neighbor? Because I played something. Oh, we finished Final Fantasy 15 and it's kind of sad. And Nina cried and cried and cried. So I was like, let's do this Hello Neighbor. It looks fun. It's a guy with a shovel. It looks great. And it's like he jumps out at you and chases you and the kids are all screaming.
I've played that one. I find it very difficult.
Yeah, it's stressful and just the controls aren't super great, but it was fun. It was fun for a bit, but it didn't release the tension like I was hoping it would. The kids are like, ah, so I just finally didn't. But yeah, that's what I'm playing. What are you playing?
Lately I've been playing this game called The Binding of Isaac.
You've played that before.
Yeah, I actually play it a lot. It's a game that you kind of just pick up and play, and you can, you know, go through the game in like half an hour. And it becomes extremely addictive, obviously, because I've been playing it nonstop for like 2 months now. Ever since I got, lost my job. So that's kind of like been my respite. But I've also been playing, open up Steam here. I just finished the new Amnesia Rebirth.
Mm-hmm.
Loved it. Really, if you played the first one, which was terrifying,
I have the first one. I haven't played it yet. But
yeah, it's Lovecraftian, but it's like it really deals with like the whole psychological, madness aspect of seeing something that should not be, and you can't defend yourself. You can only hide.
That's scary.
Yeah,
like Fatal Frame, right? Where you take a picture of the monster, but that's what you can do.
Yeah, in this game, all you can do is literally hide in the dark, but being in the dark drains your sanity.
Oh man.
So, but you can't, like, if a monster walks into a room and you're hiding, you can't even look at it. If you look at it, your like screen goes all blurry and stuff, and it will notice you.
Oh jeez.
That game is horrifying, but it did some really cool things, and Amnesia Rebirth kind of ties in with some of the lore, and they kind of explain some of the lore from the first game. I really enjoyed it, and I just started playing this game last night called Moons of Madness, where you're like this astronaut on Mars, and there's like Lovecraftian elements to it, where you start like seeing things that should not be there, and the crew starts doing some weird stuff. You're isolated on Mars, so I mean, you can't really run, you can't really run away. So yeah, I've been playing those, trying to play some horror games because it's October, so yeah, that's kind of what I've been playing.
My chair is uncomfortable because I've been sitting on it too long today.
Erica just got a new chair, and I'm jealous because it's so nice. It's soft. Yeah. I can send you the link to it. It's on Amazon.
Oh, so I can just look at it.
Pretty much.
And Christmas is coming up. Send it to me. Yes. Oh, yeah. Okay. So if you were paid $20,000 to write a romance under your own name, would you? And more importantly, could you?
Would I, given my current financial situation? Absolutely. Could I? Yeah. I actually could. It's funny you mentioned that because the novel that I'm going to be working on for Nano has a bit of a romantic element to it. So, you know, along with it being like an apocalyptic cosmic horror story, there's also a thread of, you know, romance and regret and sorrow in there. So yeah, I could probably. What?
There can't be regret and sorrow in a straight romance.
There would be if I wrote it.
Well, could you?
Yeah, I totally could.
I don't know.
Maybe I will.
Maybe you should.
Maybe you can write me a check for 50% down, and then we'll get started.
Maybe that's a really great thought.
You just PayPal me that 10 grand right now, and I'll get started. I'll get started right that second.
I picked up a quarter the other day and was like, "Whoa! I just doubled my income." So,
right. This is a generic question, and I'm sorry, but what have you read lately?
Oh boy, lots. I started reading again more than I had been. I joined this group on Facebook called like the Book Democracy Book Club, and you get like bingo cards that are like with prompts on them, and they automatically generate them for you. And so I've been trying to go through my to be read file according to these prompts. So it's like, okay, something like candy corn colored cover, you know, so I'm looking for like an orange or white cover, or it's been good. I read, let me pull up my phone and I can tell you exactly, but I read American Psycho, and I hated every second of it.
Yeah, I remember you telling me about that. That was not a good choice.
It was not. It was a terrible choice. It was like, boy, I'm depressed. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to read American Psycho. And you're like, don't do it. And I did it. I've been reading some Riley Sager books, Home Before Dark. That one is kind of reminded me a little bit of, because I've been watching The Haunting of Bly Manor. Mm-hmm. And so Home Before Dark is about a girl that grew up in a supposedly haunted house, and her dad wrote this book about the supposedly haunted house, and they call it The Book. And it was kind of the Amityville horror of the time. And so she's trying to deal with this fame that she didn't want. And I've been reading a lot of things. I've decided I hate audiobooks because they speak too slowly for me.
Really?
Yeah,
I can increase the speed at which they play.
I know, but then it just sounds unnatural.
Okay.
So I listened to Lullaby by Chuck Palahniuk, which I really liked the story, but I didn't like that I could read it in 2 hours, but it took 7 hours an audiobook.
Yeah, I'm not sure I could listen to one of Chuck's books.
Yeah, that's not the one to listen to either, because apparently parts of it are written in italics according to what time period it's in. Yeah. So I was just like, what? But, I had audiobook on my list. So yeah, I've been reading a lot of things in a lot of different genres. I've been trying to read like kind of a romance a month, just because they're kind of lighter and easier to get through. I made the mistake of reading a book about Auschwitz, Vietnam, and then SIDS. So
wow.
Yeah, I was like, well, way to be. And then I read like a book that was like super fluffy and but not very well written, and that depressed me even more. So I'm trying to kind of.
I'm sorry.
It was bad. Luke's like, why are you so sad? I'm like, this is awful. And he's like, okay. I need to go back to the crematorium. It was
This is a New York Times bestseller, and it sucks.
I hate mediocrity. I hate when mediocrity is rewarded. Anyway, yeah. So lots of things, but thank you for asking because I'm into it.
Cool.
Yeah. So 8 books a month is what I'm reading now.
Wow.
Yeah. That's a big jump from what I was doing. I mean, I wasn't reading like I should be. I was reading for work and that was it. Reading for pleasure is totally different.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah.
I just finished reading an arc of Douglas Wynn's new book, His Own Devices, and it's fantastic. I loved it. I've read that book in about 3 days. And it, I'm a slow reader to begin with. And
Sloth
for me
Todd.
to,
Sloth Todd?
Yeah, Sloth Todd is a slow reader. Yeah, I could not put that book down. I couldn't stop thinking about it. And he does this thing, like the whole thing is about this YouTuber who live streams like him playing Minecraft and stuff, and he's really like successful at it. But there's something happens in the game that alters his perception. And basically kind of steers him down this weird dark path. And of course there's like the story, there's more to the story than that, but that's kind of like the whole setup for the plot is that like this guy's doing something that he shouldn't be doing because he's being influenced by this dark force that manifested in a digital world.
That is awesome.
Yeah, it's amazing.
What's it called again?
It's called His Own Devices. I think he's actually going to self-publish it. I think he's planning to like release it in like January or February.
Awesome.
Yeah, I sent him the blurb last night, as a matter of fact. So
awesome.
Be on the lookout for that.
I'm glad to hear that. So before we go to my last question, I just want to say that when we were talking about this guy that was going to do this interview with us, I mean, I don't mean to really dog him. It was just a lot of back and forth, and it just was taking so much time to communicate, and just it kind of wasn't worth it. It's not like we don't like this guy or whatever.
Yes.
I can't remember his name apparently, and keep calling him the wrong name, but he seems like a nice enough guy. It just was too much work for what.
No comment.
What was worth. Okay, Todd, if you were a cryptid, which one would you be?
Mothman.
I know! I knew you would say that!
Or more specifically, Slothman.
Oh my gosh. My girls are just going to go wild.
No, Mothman. I've always... Like, I'm not really big into the whole cryptid scene. I know that's like a huge like subgenre of horror, like with Bigfoot and everything, but Mothman has always captured my imagination, just because, well, for one, Mothman kind of occurred at Point Pleasant, which is Ohio River. I grew up in Kentucky, so it wasn't that far away. Like Ashland was one of the places where they sighted Mothman. I've been through Ashland so many times since I moved to Pennsylvania. It's like, but I was aware of Mothman even before that. Like I grew up reading like the Time Life, like Mystic Places series and stuff like that. And they always, every UFO book I could get my hands on, there was always something about Mothman. And like I've read the early accounts of, the sightings and everything, and just the whole concept that Mothman could be like a force of nature or a force of the planet rather than being like a physical thing. And then there's also the whole issue with Indrid Cold and everything, which is terrifying.
Yes.
And I refuse to believe what the kids on Hellier discovered that said that Indrid Cold was dead. I don't believe that. Indrid Cold is in our hearts.
Injured cold. You are injured cold.
True. All of us are injured cold. No, like just injured cold. The whole concept of injured cold is terrifying to me. You know, there's that scene in the Mothman Prophecies, the movie, where they're like analyzing the video, the phone recording that Richard Gere's character took when he was speaking to Indrid Cold, and like the you know, the audio analyst is saying that, you know, down here is where human voice, you know, doesn't go above like this frequency. This guy's, you know, frequency is like way up here, and he's like, so what does that mean? It's like, well, it wasn't a person making those sounds, it was energy. And, you know, think about that, just the prospects of that. Like it's a force. It's not, you know, that kind of manifests and has been interpreted to look like a moth's, you know, a man-sized moth. But I like the idea that it's Mothman is really just how we're perceiving something. That's the closest thing that we can, for our minds to make sense of what we're seeing. You know, that's the closest thing that we can come up with. But really, it's something so alien, so, you know, unknowable. And, you know, then there's the whole concept of why it's actually making appearances prior to these massive tragedies. You know, like, is it a warning? Is it a harbinger? You know, that's, to me, that's the allure of the whole Mothman legend, is that, you know, there's so much we can only speculate upon.
I like that. And why, if it is a warning or a harbinger, why would it care?
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. That was a great answer.
Thank you. So, my last question, actually, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, I have one last question, actually. I have 6. How many did you write down?
6.
Okay. So my 6th question is, what's with the serial killer obsession?
You know, I don't know. I think serial killers are comforting. And I know that sounds really weird, but I think it's comforting to think that, like, if you have 20 people dead, it's one sicko doing it versus 20 sickos doing it.
Yeah.
I would like there to be one great big bad doing these things instead of thinking that 20 of us are capable of it. So I think that's part of it. Also, they're just, I don't know, they're really, you mean like the real life serial killers? I don't know.
Like, it's, you know, I mean, don't get me wrong. I understand, like, the fascination of learning about them just to understand what makes them tick. But I guess my question is more just, you know, you're really about the serial killers.
Why do you like Ted Bundy so much?
You're like a, you know, you're like a Ted Bundy groupie.
I'm not, because I hate what he did. Ted Bundy is different for me because that was the area where I grew up, you know. I told you my creative writing teacher's friend was killed by Ted Bundy. One of my dad's friends found one of the bodies out in the mountains.
Oh my God.
We bought my wedding ring where he abducted his one of the girls, the one that survived and testified against him. So it's our area, right?
Yeah.
And then when we moved up to Seattle, we lived, you know, my husband went to the same school he attended. You know, we were in that same area. This was a house right here that the girls were, you know, so it was just really present. And I guess in my case, I like to be, a lot of it has to do with my anxiety. I like to be aware. I've always had anxiety. Like, even when kids didn't have anxiety, I had anxiety. I was diagnosed with an anxiety disorder when I was little, and they didn't do that back then, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like by knowing about them, I feel like I'm being prepared, if that makes sense.
Okay. No, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah. So like I was reading, you know, I read like Mindhunter when I was young versus, you know, some of the other things that people are reading, because I felt like by knowing this, I would be prepared for it. So if someone wants to kill me serially, I can tell them helpfully what kind of knot would work best, apparently. Yeah. Knowledge is power. But yeah, I don't know. They've always just been really interesting to me. It just and the psychology behind it and why people do that and how they blend in, and the ones that totally stick out, you know, like Ramirez, like you see him and everyone's like he was evil and he looked evil, and then versus Ted Bundy where he just looked like a normal guy that didn't do so great in school, you know, just and I'm interested in the way that their families, like not Ted Bundy, Jeffrey Dahmer's dad. I remember watching an interview with him at like Channel 1 in high school, if you guys had Channel 1.
I remember Channel 1.
Yeah, that's where I first saw Lisa Ling and Anderson Cooper. But so watching an interview with his dad, and I want to say it was after he had been killed in prison, but his dad was like, yeah, I visited him in prison. He's my son. I love him. He's done horrible things, but I love him. And I thought, how can that be? Because he's done like kind of the worst of the worst, you know? And to have his family still love him. And I'm really interested in that. I mean, I majored in sociology and
okay.
And I just am really, all that just interests me, the way that people are impacted and what's the, you know, is there a common thread, and is it nature? Is it nurture? Is it, you know, what makes them do this, and what do we do? And what are your thoughts on the death penalty? And what are, you know, it encompasses so many things that I'm just really passionate about. So I just, they're fascinating, but I'm not a groupie. Don't call me a groupie because I don't condone what he did. But I do know a lot of information, but I have no respect nor love for the man. Because they're the ones that do, you know, that are like, oh, I'm not attracted.
I apologize. That wasn't, you know, I was said in jest. It wasn't.
I just want to clarify before my face is on too many dartboards, because he was a horrendous man, horrendous people, you know.
Yeah.
And then that's another thing. Why are women serial killers so different? You know, why does Eileen Wuornos, she used a gun, which makes her different than most, which use poison, but you know, and it's fascinating to me.
What about Carol Baskin?
Oh my God. Dancing with the Stars.
Come on, you know she did it.
I think she did it, but and why is it easier for people to like look at serial killers and see what they do than somebody that like stomps on kittens on YouTube, you know?
Yeah.
Like it's just all of that fascinates me. So.
That was a great answer. Thank you.
Well, thank you for asking something I was so like, I'm not obsessed with serial killers. I scream standing on top of my chair. I just adore you. Thank you for doing this with me. I was like, hey, does anyone want to do a thing with me and ask each other questions? And Todd's like, I'm down. And I thought this was going to be good.
Well, yeah, you know. Was that all of your questions? Did you have any?
All my questions.
Oh, okay. Well, fine then.
Because I went first, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I guess you did.
Ladies first, that was me.
Yes. All right. Well, stick around, don't go. But for everybody else watching, we're going to call it here. Thank you for watching, and thank you for spending an hour with us as we threw questions at each other and got really weird about it. So we, you know, Mercedes, where can people find you?
I'm on Facebook, Mercedes Murdoch Yardley. My blog, my website, I have a real professional website actually, mercedesmyardley.com. I'm on Twitter at mercedesmy.
And what book would you like to tell people to buy?
Buy Arterial Bloom. It is this gorgeous, with a gorgeous cover created by someone that creates gorgeous covers, Todd Kiesling. It's a dark fiction anthology, and It's the first one I ever edited as sole editor. I'm delighted about that. And it dropped in the middle of a global pandemic.
Good.
Todd has a story in there. John Bowden has a story in there. Christopher Barzak has a story in there. They're amazing. It is also up for eligible to be nominated for the Bram Stoker Award this year. So any of the stories in there are eligible, and the whole anthology itself. So please give it a read. It's beautiful. It is lush and dark and brutal and awesome. So thank you, Todd. And what would you like to?
Well, I mean, my latest is Devil's Creek. A lot of people seem to enjoy it.
It's scarring. It's traumatic. It's traumatizing.
Some people not so much. But it's my latest, out from Silver Shamrock. It came out in June. Seems to be reviewing pretty well for the most part. And it's a small town cosmic horror novel in the spirit of Salem's Lot and Lovecraft. And for anyone who's watching, you can find me all over the place. My website is toddkiesling.com. I'm on Twitter, Todd_Kiesling, Instagram, @Todd Kiesling, all one word. And I'm also on Patreon because I am currently unemployed trying to find a job. And I try to do special things for my patrons, and you can subscribe for as little as $1. So that's me. This has been Mercedes, and we will see you all later. Bye.